What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. And more importantly, welcome back to our season preview series. The series where we're trying to go through every single NBA team throughout the association and give you guys a real in-depth look at them to get you ready for the NBA regular season. We're going to spend time going over their off-season, doing a full roster breakdown, a salary cap breakdown, a rotations breakdown, and just general assets breakdown. Everything that you guys need to know about, in this case, the New York Knicks, so that you can be ready for the start of the season. But hey, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. All right, let's get into it. Alrighty, so we're here on the season preview spreadsheet. For those of you that don't know, we're going to be going over a bunch of different things in this one to basically get you guys ready for the season. This is a spreadsheet that I threw together. If you guys want access to it, pretty simple. All you have to do is leave me a comment saying I would like access to the spreadsheet. That helps out my marketing and the algorithm, obviously. But then I'll shoot you a link to my Discord. You can hop on the Discord and shoot me a message there. I'll give you a link to the spreadsheet. Pretty simple, not that complicated, and everybody wins at the end of the day. You guys get a fun tool. My algorithm is better. So yeah, I try to be transparent with that stuff. But anyway, talking about the New York Knicks today. I'm very excited to talk about this one. Probably the most fun off season, I'd have to imagine so, out of any team during the during this NBA off season. I just have to imagine so. I mean, they got what feels like almost everything that they wanted. We'll talk about the one kind of hiccup, if you will, but this is a great situation for the Knicks, and I'll let you guys know right away. This is being recorded on 8-4. I'm currently on my honeymoon at the time that you guys are seeing this, so just know that it was recorded ahead of time. If anything, if any major moves happen between now and then, I'll shoot like a little update video. It won't be nearly as long as this one, just kind of touching on some of the little things, but we want you guys to be ready for the regular season one way or another, so just know that that's how we'll be handling things. But the Knicks, finally, the Knicks had a good season last year. Knicks fans, you guys have waited long enough. Some of the best basketball fans in the world are in New York. I'm a Bulls fan, and I'm like, look, we can all say that. The Mecca is like where basketball lives, right? Like that's where it all starts from, is the Mecca. And 50-32 last year, and they learned a lot about themselves. Jalen Brunson's that guy, right? Dante DiVincenzo, great player. Julius Randle goes down with injury, doesn't matter. Mitchell Robinson was having a phenomenal season last year. He goes down with injuries. We find out Isaiah Hartenstein is that dude for them, right? They go and trade for OG Anunoby and Bojan Bogdanovic, and we're like, holy shit, they've got something. Miles McBride is starting to become something. You're like, this team is so deep. We get to the playoffs. Like, everybody gets hurt. I didn't even mention Josh Hart. Josh Hart's phenomenal. He played like 4 straight games or something stupid like that. He just never comes out of the game. They just got hurt and they fell apart. And I've never seen something like that happen before, where just like everybody got hurt. It was so sad, but like the team played with so much heart. It was such a Tom Thibodeau team, and they just kind of fizzled out at a certain point, unfortunately. But we find ourselves somehow in possibly even a better situation than the year before. Like there's a hole or two, but like this team looks good. This is a true contender. This is probably the one team that I can see, like at least on paper, really standing a chance against the Boston Celtics. Like this team is loaded. For those of you that don't know, I've got a couple other statuses that you can have as a franchise: selling, rebuilding, growing, contending. I feel like I've just started off with a lot of contending teams, which is kind of cool nonetheless. But anyway, goals for this season: stay healthy. God damn it, stay healthy. I'm a Bulls fan, right? But I'm a basketball fan. I think I speak for everybody when I say if the Bulls aren't going to win, and I'm not saying, I shouldn't say I speak for everybody. I'm speaking for me right now. If the Bulls don't win it, I want the Knicks to win it. This team looks like so much fun, and it looks so good. It was so well constructed. I just want this team to stay healthy and stay together and be happy and have good things happen to them, right? So stay healthy this season, please. Figure out the rotation. They have an interesting problem where they have a lot of good players on their team. Probably like 7-8 dudes that are pretty clear NBA starters in most situations, but not on this team. So we've got to figure out what the rotation looks like. Add more size if possible. There's a little bit of a center problem at the moment, and it's a small one. It's not as big as other teams could possibly have, but there's certainly a missing piece here. And so if we can find a way to add more size there, that would be great. But for the time being, it's okay. It's not a big deal, but we're going to see what we can do about that. But let's talk about this crazy offseason. All right, so I really had to use up a lot of space for this one. We got a couple different categories to talk about when it comes to like off seasons and the additions and losses. We have drafted players, so they drafted 4 players this year. Player departures, meaning players that were on their team at the end of the season last year that are no longer on the team. And then players brought in, players that weren't on their team at the end of last season that are now on the team, right? So let's start off with the draft. Their first round pick, Pacome Dadier, is a guy that was a second round projection for a lot of people. And if you guys were paying attention to a lot of my like off-season videos and end of the season videos, I'm like, no, this guy's gonna be something. Like when I say be something, I think he can be like an NBA level player. It's just gonna take a bit of time. He's got good size, he's got a lot of good instincts defensively, can put the ball on the floor a little bit, can shoot the ball a little bit. He's just really young and really raw. Gonna take a bit of time. This is the perfect team to bring him in and do that with. So you got him on a cheap contract for 4 years where he's going to get a chance to develop. That's awesome. Then they went and brought in Tyler Kolek, who a lot of people thought like could probably be a first-round pick. They got him in the second round. Very just solid, smart, defensive-minded player that can really just take care of the basketball. Perfect Tom Thibodeau like reserve point guard, right? Makes a ton of sense. Love that addition. And then at the end of the draft, they picked up Kevin McCullough Jr., who I think most of us would agree is a first-round talent. It's just the injuries were apparently a concern, and that's why he fell in the draft. He's a little bit older, but you give him a chance and maybe he gets healthy, he could be a reserve wing for you. But it sounds like him and as well as Ariel Huck-Porty. I just love the name Huck-Porty. Sounds like they could be two-way players for them this year, so that's why I got them highlighted in blue. As of right now, they're not like official roster players, so they're going to be developmental pieces at the very end of the day. But Huck-Porty being a big man, a center, so you got a couple of interesting pieces coming in. It's good to have guys like this when you've got a contending roster that you're kind of keeping in the wings, seeing if they develop into something. They're cheap, so it's not a big deal. I love kind of when teams go that direction with it. Player departures. Isaiah Hartenstein left to go to the Oklahoma City Thunder. That sucks. That really sucks. I really thought there was a chance that he would stick around, and you say, like, look, you can be a contending, like, starting center or whatever. Like, that's awesome. You know, you're already loved here. He did go to a different contending team, so we get it, and he got more money. Like, we're happy for him that he got his contract and everything. But, man, like, dude was kind of a legend there for a while in New York, and it would have been cool to see him come back. Alec Burks, a guy that the Knicks found out was good maybe a bit too late in the season. Alec Burks is the typical, you throw him out there, and he will get you 12 points in 15 minutes type of guy. He's going to be the meanest rec league player one day, or like in the big three or something like that. Shake Milton didn't get a ton of burn with the team. He's kind of been dealing with injuries and stuff like that, but still a solid player nonetheless. Shake Milton's gone. Bojan Bogdanovic, a typical, like, you throw him out there for starter level minutes, he can get you 20 points kind of guy. Really, really good basketball player, but he was obviously a part of the trade, as well as, and I always say this guy's name wrong, but Mamadi Diakite, I think it might be Diakite. You guys tell me in the comments below, please. I'm always looking for that. I'm not the best with names at all times. I forget names all the time, as well as just like being able to pronounce them. I don't know. I'm just not the brightest person in the world. But players brought in, obviously, like, look, like Hartenstein, Burks, Bojan, like those are tough names. Even Shake Milton, like, I like him a lot. You look at who they brought in, and like these guys, maybe outside of like Kolek, could probably give you some spot minutes. You're not thinking they can replace any of these guys, but luckily, one of the names brought in is Mikal Bridges. Phenomenal basketball player. Like, this is one, obviously the Villanova guys are all back together and everything except for Archie Diacono and is it Patchell? I think he's the other one. There might be like one or two other Villanova players, not from like that team, but that are like NBA level that you could probably bring in. But Bridges is a phenomenal addition, can get you 20 points in any night, super available, always healthy, can shoot the ball, can defend like any position, can create his own shot at times, which is he's just good at everything. And now he's going to be like a third, fourth option at times. Like, this is his dream scenario. This is the best thing ever for Bridges. Phenomenal pickup. You also got Bates Jop here, who can kind of work as like a stretch big, plays good spot minutes in the NBA at times, not anything too crazy to write home about. And then you got ultimate vibes guy Cam Payne, who can be a reserve point guard for you. He's just got a lot of NBA experience. He can get hot from three at points. Sometimes he has turnover problems. Sometimes he just goes cold, but not bad to just have a guy with that much experience on the team when you've had a lot of injuries in the past. So that's a really good addition. But let's go into the further, like, more in-depth roster breakdown. Alrighty, roster breakdown time. So if you guys have been watching my channel for a little bit, you probably recognize this is pretty much the ideal offseason spreadsheet. Little bit different, but essentially the same. I think this is a good way to talk about a couple things. Depth chart, draft picks, salary cap, like looking at individual players and kind of talking about it. But where I want to start, as always, is the salary cap space. If you guys aren't familiar with like kind of how this works, I would go back and watch the first couple videos in this series. It was like Celtics and Memphis, I believe, were the first couple. So I would go back and watch those because I go into detail a little bit more as to like what each of these levels means and why each of them are important. But for the time being, know that this team is obviously a luxury tax team. It's currently within the first apron, so we've hit some restrictions, but we actually haven't hit the second apron yet, if you can believe that, which means that this team still has an incredible amount of flexibility. Like, not as much as if it wasn't in the first apron, but we still have flexibility where we can do things like take back a little bit more money in trades if we want to, and we can also still package players together if we want, which is interesting because there's some questions around, is Julius Randle like worth keeping on the team? Do you want to move him somewhere else? Is there a situation somewhere we can combine Miles McBride and Precious Achiuwa to go get us like another center or something for this team? It's interesting to think about nonetheless, but know that there is some flexibility here and a pretty good amount of it, which is pretty cool. So we are in a pretty solid salary cap space for how much talent is on this team. Now that's going to change, and some of that is because like Jalen Brunson's on an incredibly team-friendly deal still, and the extension's going to kick in soon, but it's still not that much money. Bridges doesn't make like that much money. Like for some of these starter level guys, like even OG or like Randall, like OG's making a pretty good amount for himself, I'd say, but like Julius Randle, like not making a crazy amount of money at the end of the day. So pretty interesting nonetheless, but let's talk about actual assets that they have, because we're not working with quite as many because we just threw all of them to the Brooklyn Nets for this guy here, and it's worth probably every cent. Is he good enough to warrant like 5 picks or whatever in himself? Probably not, but it was the perfect addition, so you had to make it happen. All right, draft pick wise, we've actually still got some interesting things going on here. So we have a 1 through 13 protected first round pick from the Pistons this year. You have to imagine that that's not going to convey to them, which is kind of unfortunate. So it's kind of a useless pick. You do have a Wizards pick that's 1 through 10 protected. You have to imagine that that's not going to convey either, but it's there nonetheless. You do have 2 2025 second round picks, and this is a valuable draft, and so that's why it's important to kind of know what's going on here. This is either going to be Boston or Memphis. This one, most likely you're just not going to get it. It's pretty heavily protected, so not working with a ton of crazy assets this year, but you do have some that you can move in the coming years. Like you've got a 2026 Knicks pick that you're not going to use this season, but you might be able to use it down the line in some capacity. You have an ample amount of second round picks, which look, you don't really need first round picks at this point because all the talent's already on the team. I mean, I can just scroll through these pictures quick and like the talent's there. It's just supplementing with like little things like these second round picks that are going to matter. So don't worry that they don't have a ton of first round picks right now. The talent's already on the team. They can, if they want to, trade Julius Randle and go get you 2-3 first round picks right now. This is an all NBA talent that doesn't necessarily need to be on the team. So the picks and stuff are there. The assets are there. It just doesn't necessarily appear here. You do have a 2030 pick that you can't really touch right now, and then some further second round picks, but you've got a good amount of assets going forward. But anyway, let's talk about the roster in itself. Obviously, OG Anunoby just got his big new deal. Great for him. He looked great in his time in New York, especially playing off of like DiVincenzo, just being a great off-ball guy. He hit so many when it felt like the Knicks needed a bucket, he would just hit like the clutchest threes, like just daggers to whoever they were playing. So OG is a phenomenal fit. Julius Randle's an all-NBA talent, like we were saying. Obviously got hurt last year. He's probably going to have to play a little bit out of position this year just because of some rotational things, but he's an incredible basketball player nonetheless, and he's on a pretty team-friendly deal. Still got 2 years left on it. Jalen Brunson just apparently loves New York and gives you guys the most team-friendly deals. He's one of the best players we have in basketball, just clutch effort, like embodies New York. Awesome player. Mikal Bridges, phenomenal to have him on the team now, right? He's going to be able to play the 2 through 4, be an extra shot creator, play without the basketball. He's played with star players before. Like I said, he can space, play defense. He does everything. He does absolutely everything at an above average level, and he's just available all the time as well. And he's played with these guys before, with Brunson and DiVincenzo, right? Like, and Hart, like he connects with them already. So Phenomenal addition to the team. Josh Hart, do everything, Swiss Army knife type of guy, gets a ton of rebounds for his position, can shoot the ball a little bit. Just great energy, defensive player. We all know he's like a super six man. Mitchell Robinson. A lot of people forget that, like, and Mitchell Robinson could, for all we know, start on this team. Maybe they moved DiVincenzo to the bench and Randall to the 4 or something like that. But a lot of people forget that Mitchell Robinson was having an incredible season last year before he got hurt. His rebounding numbers were like something that we've never seen before. He had finally kind of figured out how to play without fouling and stuff. Thibs has gotten through to him and developed him. He's a good NBA player at the end of the day. This is a good starting caliber center to have. So awesome that you got him for 2 more years. Dante DiVincenzo. Do I need to explain it? Dude was phenomenal last season. The shooting, the clutchness, the ability to play in transition, guard up when needed. Like, DiVincenzo's awesome. Precious Achiuwa, they got back on like a 1-year, $6 million deal, who I've kind of thrown in here as like another center. What's cool about him is he can play like the 4 or the 5 and go out and guard both of them and play both positions like solid, which is good when you have injuries and stuff, right? So you've got this this guy that can fill in at a couple different spots and had pretty good success with it. Thibs clearly likes him, so this is one of those guys that's just going to thrive well under Thibs. Miles McBride, aka Deuce McBride, we found out that he can be a spark plug for you. I wasn't too familiar with his game until, who did they trade? Who was the point guard on the team that they moved on from? I can't even remember, but I was like, okay, so Deuce McBride's kind of the guy now. They gave him the extension. I was like, oh, really? And he just really started to put it together, so that's awesome. Again, we got Bates Jop here that, if needed, can play some stretch big minutes. At the time of recording this, Chuma Okeke is on the team. Really good defensive player. Offensively, hasn't come around, had a lot of injuries, but for the time being, he's on the squad, so you've got a defensive wing if you need to. Jericho Sims, I love the fact that you just have another center on the team. Not the greatest player, he's more just run, jump, and dunk, and defensively he's kind of questionable, but it's good to have the size and just like a guy that has some continuity on the team already. That's awesome. We talked about why Cameron Payne's important, just having a point guard that's got a lot of experience on the team. Good to have him there. Tyler Kolek, I think, was a phenomenal draft pick for them. You get him for pretty cheap. For 4 years, he can come in if like something were to happen to like one of these guys, you know, he'd just be able to come in and steer the ship at the very least. Because like, look, you've got so many killers on this team, you just don't need every single player on this team to be it. You just need some guys to steer the ship. That's what he's going to be good at. And then you got Daddy A, who they've actually structured his contract in a way where he doesn't get a lot of his money right now. He gets it later in his contract, and that's just that they can be flexible now. He's not going to get to play as much now, so really cool how they were able to structure that. And that's kind of a look at the team. Let's talk about depth. So when you look at the team right now, this is kind of the 5 that I imagine them starting the season with. As you can tell, the obvious thing here is Randall moving over to the center spot, which... is that a hole? Yeah, I would say it's a hole at center, because, like, do we feel great about him guarding every center? Not necessarily. Obviously, you lose some rim protection and stuff. Do we make up for it, though, with the offensive versatility and the defensive switchability? I think so, and that's what made me say I would rather go with Randall at center personally. Now, they might go with Mitch Robb or something like that, move DiVincenzo to the bench or something like that, and then just move Bridges and OG over. You guys get it, you're smart. I like this 5. I think it's cool. I think it's dynamic. I think you could have some crazy explosiveness on this team and a lot of switchability. It's a lot of grit and toughness out there, and you still have good spacing between like all of these dudes. So I think it's interesting. Let's talk about the bench. You've got good point guard depth, which is important. You want to always have enough ball handlers on the team. That's awesome. You go and look at the wing. Obviously, Josh Hart's going to be a guy for you. Bates Jop can come in at kind of like the 4, sometimes a little bit of 3. It's a bit of a stretch, but we feel okay about that. Okeke is obviously like a guy that's got some NBA experience, and we know he's a good defender, so we feel good about that. The good thing is we can always move DiVincenzo like over a little bit if we really need to, and we want to go small or something like that. So like it's not the greatest depth ever at the wing, but at the end of the day, you got Bridges and you got OG out there. Like, so we can obviously have rotations where it's like Brunson, Hart, Bridges, and then Randall here with insert center Mitchell Robinson or whoever. So you've got some good flexibility here. So it's not the biggest deal that you don't have crazy depth at the wing. And then it's good that they've got a couple centers on this team, because you don't want to get outsized at any point. That became a big problem for them last year with like Robinson and like Hartenstein kind of being a little banged up, and you asked Josh Hart to kind of be a makeshift big for you at times. It's good that they were able to maintain enough kind of depth on the roster to where if they need to throw somebody out there that they can. But all right, that's kind of a look at the roster itself. I mean, it's not too complicated really. Like if we wanted to talk about like making moves, because we do have the flexibility to do so, like what exactly would that look like? Like there's a couple centers out there that, like, if we really wanted to address the center position, right, and make sure that we had another center on the roster, there's definitely ways we can do about that. So maybe we just explore a hypothetical. Maybe this will just be a thing in the videos from now, and let's just have like one hypothetical trade that can make every team better in some capacity, because I know you guys like it. This is also good for my watch time, so we're not going to pretend like that's not a thing. But so what would we try to package together to get another center on the team? So we got Bates, Jop, that obviously, like if we brought another center, Randall kind of becomes that other forward or something like that, so that's not a big deal if we lose him. You can throw a Jericho Sims in there. We can only take back 110% of salaries, so we'd have to throw in some of these guys at the bottom here. So what are we kind of working with? Let me look back at here quick. So Achua would be an interesting one with maybe like Bates, Jop. That could kind of be where we go. Do they even have Achua on here yet? They might not, just because of yeah, it doesn't look like they have Precious on here yet, which isn't the biggest deal. We can kind of work with it one way or another. So there is one player that I thought of immediately that I think would be kind of interesting that doesn't necessarily need to be on the team that he's on right now, is Kevon Looney. He makes $8 million, so how can we get to that number? So it would be like Precious or something like that, and I can't add Precious for whatever reason. I don't know what's going on with Fanspo right now, but I apparently like can't add him to the team. I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know why I can add Malachi Flynn and not him, but you know, whatever. Oh, I don't want him. I don't want him on my team. But how can we move Kevon Looney without even doing that is the question. It might not be possible, but we can kind of experiment with it nonetheless. So let's just say we're throwing in, like, he's got 1 year, $8 million. Why would they want to move him necessarily? We'll say that they want to cut some salary or something like that, bring in a little bit more depth. They could use some help at center. Maybe Jericho Sims is someone that they're a little more interested in because he's a little bit younger. So we move someone like him over. We move like a Bates over there because they need a little bit more length on the team. Like, where does this even get us? Yep, that fails. That's because we can only take back 100% of the salary. Wait, why does this say we're a second apron team? No, it's a first apron team. So that isn't necessarily correct. So incoming, so we can only take back 110%. So we can just say this hypothetically, since the Precious Achua thing isn't working, we could do Precious and some combination of like picks and like another $2 million-ish dude, and we can get close enough and we can make a Kevon Looney thing type work. I think that'd be nice. Bring in a little bit more size, a guy that's just going to play good defense, get some rebounds and stuff like that, would allow Julius Randle to move back over here. I'm not going to throw it like into the rotation itself because that's not what this video is about. It's about kind of getting you ready for the regular season, but I just wanted to kind of explore it nonetheless and just kind of fantasize, if you will. But let's talk about rotations, and more so the depth chart. And I'm actually gonna change this to rotation because I've been doing that in all the other videos, and so I want to do it here. Why do I call this rotation question mark? It's because, look, I don't know what they're actually gonna do minutes wise. I do this exercise just because us as coaches, a lot of times we try to set like average minute goals to start the season so we have an idea of what the rotation looks like and everything, and this is kind of a fun way to do that. So we know this is a Tom Thibodeau team. I can't imagine they're gonna go past 9 people, and that's why I've kind of drawn it out as this, but this is how I imagine it going. Brunson, obviously that's your dude, right? Like, he's getting 33-ish minutes a game. Sometimes you'll play less if they're killing him. Sometimes it's more, well, maybe not if it's a Thibs team, but you know what I'm saying. Dante DiVincenzo, I imagine him playing more so like 29, just because there are some guys off the bench that we want to get some good minutes. Like, let's talk about Josh Hart now. Probably having them split minutes. We know how much Thibs loves Josh Hart. We got Bridges here. We know he's going to abuse Bridges and Anunoby, right? Those are his defensive wings. Think the Luol Dengs of this team. So, you know, he's going to abuse them minutes-wise. And then Julius Randle probably around like 30-ish or so, just because he can split some time with Mitchell Robinson. And Achua as like the kind of center. He's still going to play a good amount, but he's coming off some injuries, and so we don't want to like wear him out too much. He can also be in the way a bit offensively. Like, I know we haven't talked about it much on here, but the fit of Julius Randle I think is better when he's at center with this group, just because he can be a bit of a black hole at times. He is like a pretty good like passer. It's just a lot of times he wants to operate on like the block and stuff, and he kind of gets in the way because of that, and he wants to operate then in those like kind of like the wing areas of the mid-range. So it's hard at times, but that's kind of what I picture him with there. And then obviously Deuce McBride getting some solid minutes there. Whenever DiVincenzo and Brunson aren't running the show, that's when Deuce is going to come in and just kind of do his thing. So really, really good rotation here. Like these 9 players right here, that is a really, really good rotation. You feel good about that. I mean, the first 5 is incredible. Then you got Hart and Mitchell Robinson, who are NBA starters coming off the bench. Miles McBride has obviously shown he can do some things, and Precious has had some good moments for them as well. You got a lot of flexibility, a lot of dynamicness, a lot of switchability, floor spacing. You got it all. This is a really good team. Obviously, you got Campaign coming off the bench if you need him. Okeke, as we've said, can play NBA minutes. Bates-Diop, Jericho Sims then next, with some of the rookies here, and Kolek probably getting a slight edge because he's a little bit more mature, with Daddy A filling out the last roster spot. So that's what I imagine it looking like for now. Like I said, I can't imagine them really going 10 deep. If they did, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Campaign, or maybe Okeke wins them over with the defense and everything. But that's kind of what I envision, at least for the time being. But all right, let's get into standings. This is the moment of truth. Where do the Knicks sit? Where do I possibly think that they could sit? We've talked about how great of a team they are. Celtics are already at 1, so clearly I don't have them as 1. We already did the Grizzlies and Lakers and everything. Where do we think the Knicks sit? Drum roll, please. Tell me why in the comments section I'm wrong. But no, they're the second team. Nope, I'm not gonna like waste time. I think we all know that these are the 2 best teams in the East. It's pretty clear, in my opinion. There's certainly some good teams after that, but like these 2 teams just have stacked rosters that honestly don't really compare to anybody except maybe like the Thunder and like maybe the Mavericks in the NBA, with like the amount of depth that we perceive them to have. So I think it's pretty evident that these are the 1 and 2 teams, with the Knicks falling in at 2. As just kind of a wrap-up, pretty eventful offseason. You lost some big names, but you brought some big names in. You had a pretty interesting draft. The roster's looking good. You've got roster flexibility. You've got assets to move and players to move. We've identified there could be an issue at center that we want to address, but otherwise we feel pretty good. You're going to have a good rotation that, like, look, this team's just loaded. It just is. I just don't know if there's a better 9-man rotation than this, or like if we just compare like top 7, I mean, is this not? This is probably just as good as Boston, if not better, because of the bench, right? Like you'd have to imagine it is, and the amount of salary flexibility they have is phenomenal. So it's no shock that they come in at the 2nd seed here. But hey, I'm curious to hear what you guys think at the end of the day. These are just my thoughts. I want to hear your comments down below. And make sure if you want the spreadsheet to go leave me that comment saying you want the spreadsheet, and a reminder that I am on my honeymoon right now, so going to be trying to respond to comments as best as I can and everything, but we'll see. I got to put the lady first at the end of the day. But hey, I appreciate you guys for watching as always. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this series, and hey, we'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks so much. Bye.